Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to go over how to create dependent drop-down lists. So what that means is, select one drop-down option, and based on that selection you're going to impact the choices you're going to have in the next drop-down. So in this video I'm using the same data that I used for my last one, which is the all-time selling video games, and I'm going to have three drop-downs here. One for the platform, the developer, and the game. And so rather than just having one drop down for the game, I'm going to have this drop down impacted by the selections here, and these selections impacted by this initial option for the platform. So in order to make this work, what I need to do is set up named ranges. So at the very start, I need a named range for all these platforms, and then I need a list for all the developers, and then the game titles based on those selections. So on the categories tab, this is how I've structured my named ranges. So I've got my platforms here, and you'll notice each one of these are also options here. They're also named ranges themselves. And so that's basically how it works. So it's like you select multi-platform, okay, so that these are all the developers that had multi-platform games on that list. And then these options here show up here. So I've got a whole bunch of named ranges that I've set up. So if you go to formulas, name manager, you'll see all the ones that I've set up. And so platforms is my starting point. And so based on my selections, I can jump into here. And then if I selected this one, I would end up in here. So some of these don't have many selections. I just wanted to show you how this would work. So I'm going to switch over to the other tab now. And I'm going to start with my first drop down for the platforms. So I'm going to hit the data tab, data validation, use a list option equal to platforms. So simple enough, this is just a basic lookup at this point, or a drop down. So we've got all the different options for the platforms. Now next up I'm going to have the developer drop down. So I'm going to hit data validation again, list. This time what I'm going to do is use the indirect function to say, okay, look at the value here. So this is cell I8. So using the indirect function, you're telling Excel to look at the value that's here. Right now it's going to give me an error because nothing's been selected for this one, but it will work once I start making selections. Same thing over here. I'm going to select list and equal to indirect I11. So this one's I11, this one is I8. So now if I select the platform, select multi-platform, that has the most options there. Now I'm going to have all the developers that show up as having multi-platform games. If I were to change this to, let's say, mobile, there's only one game on this list, so that's just going to have EA Mobile. One thing you'll notice about my data set here is I've gotten rid of the spaces and added underscores in their place for the sake of not having any gaps, just to make sure that I can make named ranges for them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that. And with Nintendo showing up as both a publisher and a developer and a platform, I added an underscore just to differentiate that as well, just to avoid having to not being able to use it as a named range. So I select mobile here, and the developer automatically updates to just EA Mobile, just that one, and then the only game in there is Tetris EA. So you can see that as I'm funneling down, it's giving me those different options. So if I were to change my platform to multi-platform, then I've got all that list of games in here. So if I select Infinity Ward, that's going to give me all the games made by them. And so as you can see, based on these selections, they're going to drive different results that I've set up. And so you can make this as specific or as deep as you want. The only thing you're going to want to consider is how many named ranges you're going to want to set up, because obviously that's going to be the most time-consuming part of this. But once you've got those named ranges set up, then the key to making this work is just having that indirect function. Because what that indirect function does in that data validation is it points the data validation to look at this value, and as long as this value references an actual named range that you've set up, then your drop down will work and will update based on that value. So the key is making sure that whatever's in here, Rockstar, that we've got a named range that's called Rockstar. And so as you can see here, we've got those options for Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, and so those are the ones that show up here. So it's pointing to that named range, and because that named range is set up, that's how all this works. So that's how you create dependent drop-down lists in Excel.